dia, Portugal!
In Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know. Carl rings the bell and the members show to the GMP morning show. Featured guests will come and they will blow your mind. The audience will do so in kind. The little vanity mixed with some insanity on the morning show with GMP.
Good morning, Portugal, and I'd like to welcome you to another fantastic day.
Hey, Gumpers.
Hola, bon dia, alegria, Munson here with the Good Morning Portugal show, a live stream and podcast. Boa segunda. Segunda-feira, of course, today, Monday. How was your weekend? Do let us know. Gutted not to have been at the Prohibition Bar opening yesterday. Had a slight change of plan. All is well, a very productive weekend, but I'm still looking forward to going to the Prohibition Bar, where the ladies of my netball team went as well yesterday afternoon after receiving visitors from Bath in the UK. I'm still not sure what the result was. If you're at the Prohibition Bar, if you're doing something else very nice here in Portugal, do let me know how your weekend was in the chat, please, or send pictures and videos on 913-590-303. A bon dia, Portugal, from João de Norte. How you doing? We've got James's bon dia, Portugal somewhere. That's 4 so far, 3 men, 1 woman. If you want to submit yours, share your bon dia, Portugal, please do that. Again, on 913-590-303. Coach Turner and James are in already. Who else is in? Come on, let us know how your weekend was. Maybe what you're looking forward to doing and achieving this week ahead as well. At around 9 o'clock, James will be joining us. He is, of course, our Mindful Migration Monday maestro. And it was a very, very good session on the 100th episode of James joining us on the Good Morning Portugal show. And we talked about, well, there's a little segmented video, depression at the, feeling down, feeling blue at the darkest end of the, what do we call it? The migration spectrum, I suppose, or migration fatigue. That's what it was, migration fatigue, when it gets quite shockingly and disturbingly awkward and difficult, and some great solution-focused insight from James up on our YouTube channel as we speak. And I'm going to be posting a lot more shorts. This fantastic technology that I use here, StreamYard. I've been resisting AI just like I resisted CDs when they first came out. However, this particular bit of software here, StreamYard, uses AI to make little short videos, and I have to say, it's very good too. So expect more short videos from Good Morning Portugal, and hopefully they will bring more boys and girls to the yard to join us in the morning here as we get ready for the day in a nice, easygoing, leisurely, and informative way, loving life here in Portugal. So James with us at 9, and then Steve, he's going to spilling the beans on Portuguese property at around 9:30. Steve's got an upcoming webinar in Central Portugal about Central Portugal. He'll tell us more about that when he joins us. But if you want to invest in yourself this morning or invest in Portugal, you're in the right place for the next 90 minutes or so, or 1 hour 25. Let's have a look then at the first comments coming in this morning at 7:45. I was up nice and early this morning, been out with the dogs already. Very nice morning, a bit changeable. Hence my opening meme this morning. Oh, look, there's spring. Oh, and it's gone. No, wait. Here again. That's how it is at the moment here in Portugal. I don't know if it's like that in your part of the world. I guess in the United States, or as I heard it referred to yesterday as the excited states of asparagus, there is some pretty good eclipse action, of course. It is the 8th of April today. And a couple of things I want to acknowledge this morning is my mother's birthday today. She'll kill me for saying this, but my mother is 86 today. So very happy birthday to you, Mum, over there in the UK. If some of you do have met and know my mum and seen her on the screen here, if you want to send me a message on 913-590-303 that I can forward on to her, I'm sure she'd be delighted to receive that. Don't mention her age, though, for goodness sake. So, what an amazing achievement. 86 years of age this morning. That's my mother. And, of course, she has her birthday on this auspicious astronomical day, the solar eclipse, whereby certain parts of the world today will be plunged. Will they be plunged, or will they just go dark for 3 to 4 minutes? It sounds more dramatic, doesn't it, to say they'll be plunged into darkness. Day will become night in a most unusual way. I think it's pretty unusual, isn't it, to be fair? A lot of people are poo-pooing and playing down the eclipse this morning, and especially, be quiet, all you conspiracy theorists with criticism of NASA and CERN opening portals to other dimensions. Shut up, some are saying to others. Whatever you're making of it today, and I'd be very interested to hear how you're acknowledging the eclipse today. With it's like, meh, just the moon getting in the way of the sun, nothing to worry about. Or, whoa, this is incredible. What are the chances of that? The heavenly bodies on their orbits. If you believe in that particular theory, people have all sorts of theories and positions on this. And I think we're in a community here, aren't we, where people can express how they're going to acknowledge it, how they see it, without fear of recrimination or criticism. Well, no, they're going to get judged. I mean, let's face it, we're all human beings here. You're going to get judged, whatever you say. So you might as well say it, and we might as well preserve the beautiful atmosphere we have here thus far on the Good Morning Portugal show, where more or less we're just fine about people having their view on things, their point of view, as long as it doesn't become a problem to other people. That's how we live in harmony on this planet, isn't it? I think we need to send that message out loud and clear to people all around the world, especially those so-called leaders of ours. So, 7:43 was it? Coach Turner, you were in with a bom dia Gumpers, a bem-vindo, uma nova semana. I'm thinking, along with this general trend of more Portuguese, I think Coach Turner's running with that. Doesn't time fly? Only 1 week to go. I wonder who was the first person to fly time. Was it the Wright brothers? Only 1 week to go before we set out on our adventure to Portugal. Time does fly. What? Where am I meant to be? In the meantime, we have grandchildren to look after and coffee. Coffee. Mrs. M, if you're hearing this, please. Coffee. Bon dia, Ian, from, what's he calling himself this week?
Hoo-ah!
Slow hand, no hand, slow foot. Thanks, Pointer Sisters. I need a lover with a slow hand, not come and go in a heated rush. Yes, he doesn't like a slow hand first thing in the morning. Bom dia, gambas. Feliz segunda a todos. Como foi o vosso fim de semana? Mindful moment. Keep this in mind. It's all temporary. Wait, what? It's all temporary? Well, why are we stressing so much about it then? And God Scored Tip of the Day. Then it's all mixed up here. The God Scored Tip of the Day and the Mindful Moments. James will be here to talk more about mindful migration. And not so far from now, we'll hear his lovely music, and they'll be with us around 9 o'clock. I came across an interview with a guy on a beach who was 64 years old and absolutely ripped. Now, if you're listening in, if English isn't your first language, and that is a somewhat painful sounding what's it called? Not an ideogram. Not an idiosyncrasy, idiom. There we go. If you're not familiar with being absolutely ripped, it's not a bad thing necessarily, unless you're the partner of that person and you don't really want to sleep against the washboard, chest and belly. Anyway, enough ramblings about being absolutely ripped. It just means that well-developed musculature. Apparently, he spent 4 hours every day in the gym working out. What? Don't be like that guy, says Coach Turner. He's clearly obsessive and, while very fit, wouldn't have the sort of life that I would want, or I suspect many of you might prefer, or like I prefer, Coach Turner says, to do enough to stay healthy, enjoy what I do, and have time for the finer things in life. Yes, the coffee, the red wine, the fine food. I know it's a lifestyle choice, but 4 hours a day? Really? Yeah, I guess, I mean, if that's what he loves, fair enough. But I get it, Coach Turner. It's not everyone's cup of tea, is it? A cup of tea is more my cup of tea. Bondi, and thank you, D, for the Yorkshire tea bags. I was running out, and no sooner had I run out, a couple of days into Portuguese tea bags, and thinking, do I use two, or just do I leave the tea bag in longer? D, thank you so much. Lots of love to you, Mike and D, and thank you very much for the Yorkshire tea bags. Bon dia, James. Como vai? How's it going? Now, I nearly missed the second part of the mindful missives this morning. Filling the tea duct vacuum. What happens after death? Says the student. Asks the student of the Zen master. How should I know? Wasn't expecting that. But you're a Zen master. Zen master says, yes, but not a dead one. Which is the right button, I wonder, for this? No? Yes! Very good, Zen master. Okay, excellent stuff. Who else has joined us since we've started this morning? Bon dia, Portugal, of course, from João de Norte, who started that craze. Really? Are you a meh eclipse person? Or are you saying that about something else? Not so fussed about a slow hand first thing in the morning. Had a wonderful warm afternoon and evening with friends in celebration of the return of a friend who led leading 2 safaris in Tanzania. Wow, what a fascinating woman and terrific photo montage. Yeah, she sounds like a hell of a gal, leading 2 safaris in Tanzania there. So what a lovely name that is as well, Tanzania. Thank you very much for that, João de Norte. Yeah, so you're not too bothered about the eclipse then? Who is? Who isn't? How will you be acknowledging this? If you're an astrological as well as astronomical person, you might like to check out Mrs. M's video, her treatment, her ideas about the solar eclipse that many around the world will be experiencing a little bit later on. I don't think the weather's especially well, is it, for viewing? But I mean, again, whether the weather's good or bad, you're going to know if it goes dark for 3 or 4 minutes, I would have thought. And my memory of this, I think it was 1999, when we didn't party like it was 1999 because the eclipse was like, okay, but it wasn't absolutely stunning. I was sat in a park there must have been another eclipse since then, but this is the one that was most meaningful for me because I went out of my way to experience it. And I was in a park in Sheffield, in Yorkshire of the UK, with many other people, of course. And we're all sat there on our picnic blankets, looking up towards the sky, everyone using the right sort of equipment. So obviously they're not looking directly at the sun and blinding themselves. We've come far enough to know that, have we not, as an evolved species? And it did feel eerie. I think the animals, the birds were singing, and there was a definite change in the vibes. But it didn't go completely dark. It seemed to go a little bit still. But then was that because everybody in the park went still? We're all part of the experiment, aren't we? I have a tasty treat video. Shall I send it? Yes, definitely. Please do. I want to see your tasty treat video, Owen. Send that on 913-590-303. John, running out of a proper brew. He's got his Yorkshire tea bags there. I thought I'd have you down more as a coffee rather than a tea bag person. Tea bag person can mean all sorts of things, can it not, as well? Let's not go there right now. Let's dip our tea bags this morning. Thank you very much, João de Norte, for, in case people don't know about Yorkshire tea, this is tea that's grown in the foothills of the Pennines. Here it is. Let's have a proper brew. Let's just move your comment there, Owen, so we can see that. Isn't that a beautiful scene? There are people playing cricket. Oh, there's a lamb, and there's a picture I want to show you to do with lambs and sheep that I captured last week. Not brilliantly, but it was such a brilliant moment. But more of that in just a while. So people are playing cricket. There are the Yorkshire Hills. They're in the Yorkshire Dales, and a stile going over a dry stone wall there, and a lovely cottage. You're expecting to see the cast of Last of the Summer Wine or Emmerdale wandering into view as well. Tailors of Harrogate, you don't pronounce, just like the Portuguese, actually, you do not pronounce your H's in Yorkshire. So that's Harrogate, in case Paul Richards is watching this morning. Let's have a proper brew. Let's mash a proper brew, aye, lad. Thank you very much, Owen. We will send you a 4-minute video of your tasty treat in just a moment. But there you go. Tea grown in Yorkshire. Who knew? Is it global warming, or have they been doing that for a long time? I'm not sure. Okay, bon dia gumpers from Jackie. The only female entry so far of the Bon Dia Portugal shouted across the canal. Thank you very much. Michael Barton, another Bon Dia Portugal person. Bon Dia from Miranda de Corvo. Good news. We've received our initial temporary residence cards Friday afternoon. Well done. We are official for the next 2 years. Congratulations. Marvelous. Good stuff. Loved, and congratulations to all the family there at Casa Barton. Okay, huge thanks then for the Learn Portuguese with Philomena live stream. It was fab. It was very good, wasn't it? Will it become a regular slot? It will. And we're going to be doing, as I say, more. We're going to launch very soon our program on how to start a conversation with a stranger in Portuguese. Now, the voting is still coming in over at the Portugal Club, gmpvip.com. Let me just bring that onto the screen for you. We are going to launch that course real soon. It's going to be, here are my ideas for it. It's going to be a 28-day course, as in four lots of 7-day blocks. Let me just check. Yes, that is 20. That is 28, isn't it? Of course. And here's the voting over there. We will definitely be doing more to help people speak Portuguese. Personally, I think there's a really big void between people who want to learn and people who ultimately end up speaking Portuguese. And they get lost in the middle for all sorts of reasons. And I think there's room for a bit of a disruptor in the Portuguese language support area. Now, not instead of all the wonderful modalities and approaches, the many excellent language teachers, and of course, when you learn with Philomena, you're learning about the culture. Of course, you can't separate culture from language, in my view, and the view of many other language teachers I've spoken to. It gives you an insight into how the language is formed, and of course, you want to learn more about the culture of the country you're moving to. And I think there's something missing in terms of accountability, action, fun, to augment the teaching. So that's what we're going to do. We are going to be starting our 28-day Portuguese kind of boot campy type thing. I don't want to put people off by calling it a boot camp. It is going to be not intense, but it's going to be applied. It's going to be accountable. It's going to be fun. Because if you want to learn how to strike up a conversation with a stranger in 28 days, you're going to have to just, it's not going to be like the Matrix where you get a lead plugged into the back of your head. As much as that might be very convenient, we don't approve of such methods yet, Elon Musk. We want to be there for you, with you, as you learn, and with other people in a small squad of people learning to do the same. And hopefully within 28 days, you will have gained the confidence and the vocabulary and the tactics and the escape lanes as well. If you're struggling, if it gets too stressful, we'll give you some strategies for managing a difficult situation. If you've run into the quicksand of conversation, we'll give you all of that, and you'll be learning with a native Portuguese speaker as well. Don't stop doing everything else you're doing, learning Portuguese. This will be in addition to, and it will be a lot of fun, and you may make some new friends who are on that journey. So if you're one of those people who wants to learn more, if you're one of those people who's learned a little bit but hasn't been able to apply it, if you are just curious and you'd like to try learning something new, and it could be just randomly, it could be Portuguese, couldn't it? Come and learn with us. We'll be launching very soon how to strike up a conversation with a stranger in public. I guess you could use the same skills in private, but that's the idea, is being able, let's say you're at a bus stop, you're at a restaurant, and you strike up a conversation. It might be with the waiter, it might be with someone else in the cafe. So we'll be launching that real soon. Let me know, indicate to me if you're interested in joining that. I dare say we'll be doing a beta testing group, which will be discounted from the ultimately the full cost of doing so. And of course, there'll be a discount for anyone who's a member of the Portugal Club. Okay, let's come back to that in a little while as that unfolds and develops. We've got a 4-minute video, which I better get on with showing because it's 10 to 9. James will be here soon. Oh, I can see some, what looks like garlic bread, but maybe a little bit more complicated than a straightforward garlic bread. Let's whet our appetites, tickle our taste buds with Owen this morning. After we've said a few more hellos, let me just load up that video. I can see Rugby Colin, our man from Go Motoring Portugal, not Go Mortaring Portugal, but Go Motoring Portugal is with us. What are you saying this morning, Colin? And thank you for that tip about pickleball in Salida de Porto. I wanted a class a bit nearer than driving 40 minutes to get to a class and then 40 minutes back again. It turns out Salida has a pickleball club as well. That's wonderful. Thank you. And yes, so yes is the answer to your question, Jackie. That was so popular last Thursday, and it is on the Expats Portugal YouTube channel as well, that we will be doing that again. Love working with Philomena, and she'll be here this Friday as well, of course. Netball ladies had a wonderful tournament. They won 2 games, but the ladies from Bath won the tournament. Our ladies then had lots of refreshments at the Prohibition Bar. I've seen them refreshing themselves, and they don't hang about. Those netball girls and their big Kanecas, honestly. Joao Denort, yes, running out of a proper brew here too. A formal request has been submitted to Bob and Viv to find room in their return luggage from their upcoming trip. Yes, me too. Put me down for some of those Yorkshire tea bags. That's going to look a little suspect, isn't it, as they come through Portuguese customs with loads of Yorkshire tea. Bon dia to you, Pam. And look, we've got Joan van Groningen with us. Bon dia. I would love the boot camp. Okay, fantastic. That's great feedback. Thank you, Joan, to you. Let's go eat some food. Well, virtually, sadly. Yes, I always make the same mistake here of playing these food videos or talking to Owen about food on an empty stomach. I'm about to do it again.
So
here we go.
We have toasted rolls with avocado spread. And on that, I'm going to put some lettuce on there. More lettuce on the second one. Just like that. And then we go over to the frying pan where we have the good old shrimp, the good old prawns that has been coated with Old Bay, corn flour and flour, salt and pepper and a bit of paprika. That's gone on there. Just going to turn these over. Make sure that they're done. Oh yes. A bit golden now. Oh, beautiful. Right, time to take these off. Right, let's get these off. Put them onto the greaseproof paper, paper towel even. Just to get rid of that excess grease. Got a little golden piece of goodness. Okay, now that's done. Get these on the sandwiches, onto the bread buns. So, go. Get these stacked on. Grease my fingers, albeit with the hot prawns or shrimps, depending where you're from. Second bun to go. And I've actually made some bang bang sauce. Bang bang sauce is mayonnaise, sriracha and some sweet chili sauce. So that's next to go on top. Let's move over to my favourite place. Move over to here. On with the sauce. There. That one on there. And then I'm going to sprinkle some tomatoes on the top, just like so. And then some spring onions or scallions, depending on where you're from, on the top as well. And there we have it, folks. Two lovely spicy prawn rolls.
Oh, and then he eats them. He doesn't like a bit of bang bang sauce first thing in the morning. Good morning to you, Colleen. Lots of love to you, Colleen. Bon dia todos to those in the US. Happy solar eclipse. And what is the difference between a shrimp and a prawn, by the way? And again, scallions and spring onions. Funny, isn't it? Wherever you travel in the world, sometimes these things change. And sometimes it can get you into a lot of trouble as well. You know what we haven't done for a little while? And probably because the weather's been so bad. But we haven't looked at the weather. So let's have a look at how things are shaping up around the country. And I know you can do that by looking out of your window, which I think James just did, who's waiting to join us in a few minutes for some mindful migration Monday action. But to give you an idea of what's going wrong, and it may well be going wrong around the rest of the country. Let's take a look at it now. Do you remember when we used to do this? All of these temperatures in Lisbon, certainly in Fahrenheit as well for our American viewers. Otherwise, just double it and add 30 to get the Fahrenheit temperature. So in Lisbon at the moment, broken clouds at 15 degrees and 59 Fahrenheit, 15 degrees centigrade and 59 Fahrenheit. Yes, be very careful that I am speaking in centigrade mainly here. Otherwise, you think there's a new ice age here in Portugal if you're listening as an American. Porto, 12 degrees with light rain at the moment, rising to a massive 13 this morning. The high in Lisbon, by the way, and rain is expected, is 61 this morning. Spring trying to show its face and then getting rained on. Coimbra also rainy. The outlook today there, overcast currently, 16 degrees, staying at 16. Faro is 19 as a high, currently 15. Rain forecast there as well. Although some nice sunny weather expected in the Algarve on Tuesday and Wednesday. Braga raining currently, light rain, that is, some lovely Portuguese light rain. At 12 degrees, likely to stay there as well at 12. Aveiro, 14, overcast with clouds at the moment, rainy. I think it's raining throughout Portugal. Yes, Castelo Branco, Évora, Leiria. So a rainy day ahead, a high of 15 where I'm living here in the Leiria district here in San Martinho de Porto. Santarém rising to 16 with 14 degrees of the centigrade and overcast clouds at the moment. And Viseu, 11 degrees, likely to stay that way, and raining today. So looking like a cloudy week ahead, occasional outbreaks of sunshine. Should we have a look at the autonomous regions as well? Little outbreaks of sunshine, some springtime weather this week, but looking like a cloudy, rainy week ahead. Açores, 14 degrees at the moment, rising to 17. And Madeira, quite a chilly 7 at the moment for Fabrizio and Ian, who are over there, rising to 12, and some sunshine for them. A sunny day at 12 degrees and 10 degrees and sunny tomorrow, Tuesday. Okay, let's play his theme tune, shall we? And bring the slug on, and or bring the friend of slug on, and let's see what he's got to say for us this morning. Where is that music? It's here somewhere. Too many videos in my video stack here. Here it is.
Bom dia!
Olá, bom dia, tudo bem?
Sim, tudo. E tu?
Pouco cansada, mas muito bem, obrigado, muito bem.
Ah,
Bem. Bang.
Sauce.
Bang, sauce, first thing in the morning. Yes! Hey, look, prawns have 3 pairs of legs. Shrimps only have 1 pair. What? Who knew?
I did not know that. I always thought it was a function of size, like shrimp were little and prawn were big, but
I thought
that may also be true, but I didn't have nothing to do with legs. Okay,
yes,
good to know.
Yes. And look, people live for this moment when you arrive. Not necessarily for you, but for your music.
That's right. As soon as the music's done, they're off doing something else.
So, episode 101 this morning. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes, and Feliz Aniversario de 2 anos.
Oh, okay, excellent. For you today, 2 years.
Well, Thursday, technically, April 11, 2022 is when we officially launched Thoughts from the Redwoods. So,
Oh, I see. I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon. Yeah. Okay. So, right. Incredible. 2 years. 2 years. Whoa. Where's that gone? I mean, someone was saying that before, weren't they? Time flies. I think Coach Turner was saying that. And I think you've made the comment before, as you get older, time speeds up, right?
yeah, what I say is time flies. The older you get, the faster it goes. So,
Yes. Yeah. Well, that would appear to be the case. And have you got a clip for us then?
I do.
Loaded something up. Okay.
Yeah, I was struggling a little bit with what order to do things, because I do have my one thing I've learned, but we can do that after. But this is a clip from the very first Thoughts from the Redwoods episode that we did. So I decided, okay, that'll be my annual anniversary reminder.
So is it in black and white? Is it in black and white and we're wearing top hats?
Yeah, and it's got that very sort of stiff motion that goes on. It's tough to keep the speed when you're turning the reel with your hand. Yeah.
Yes, we had a film crew and the guy with the big coat going, and action!
That's right.
Really
and then
bright light.
And then the subtitles, yeah.
Oh, how wonderful. Okay.
So shall I go ahead? I think all I got to do is click it. And
I bring it to the stage there. I think you're
on after this.
There it is.
Is a certain American gentleman now living in Portugal with his thoughts on life for you. We're going to do this every Monday. Let's get, hold on. Before we do, let me just play. What a lovely bit of music, and what a lovely gentleman we have on the screen with us this morning. James, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. And the thing is, of course you're there. We can see you there, but I was wondering if we could hear you. And we can hear you loud and clear. So message from the Redwoods, thought from the Redwoods. You're working under a range of different names this morning. We know and love you as James in Ericeira. Who recently, well, not recently, a few months in now from arriving from Santa Cruz in California.
6 months.
6 months, a legend as well, already within our community. And I saw somebody tracked you down on Facebook over the weekend. I found you. I need to speak to you. You are this resource to people. You're also the banana slug. You are here this morning because we had a little chat, didn't we? I see you as our sort of resident pastoral, caring, empathic, good guy who is a stand for our happiness and well-being and peace of mind here in the Gumper community. And I thought, well, let's get James on a Monday morning and see what he's been thinking, see what no pressure or anything, but what words of wisdom do you have for us? And I don't know if it's fair to do this, but I make the comparison to you and Mr. What's he called? Mr. the icon
Rogers
of America.
yes.
Yeah, he's our very own Mr. Rogers, taking care of that part of our psyche. And I thought, why not do this on a Monday morning? Perfect. You know, if anyone's feeling a little bit downbeat or blue on a Monday morning, who better than to just tee off the week in a light-hearted and wholehearted way than you, sir?
Wow.
Happy 2 years.
A little bit indulgent, possibly. Steve, who's joining us at 9:30, we're watching a radio show on a radio show. Not only that, but the people in the radio show are watching themselves. You're watching that.
But like looking in a mirror with a mirror behind you and just goes on. Infinity mirror, yeah.
Infinity radio show. I hope you'll indulge us there for a moment, because that was amazing, wasn't it, to see where it all began. And to see that we're still incredibly handsome and hopefully helpful to people as well.
And ever young.
Yes, and same hat. Look, good old not a cowboy hat. The little
it is a bit tidier, I noticed. Before it was just sort of flopping down. Now I've got it stacked up on my beach hat. So
yes.
Better display.
Wow. Well, what have you learned in that time? I mean, you certainly, I think, helped a lot of people, to be fair. And I think to acknowledge you appropriately there, I think you've been an amazing help, including right up to the date. You know, last week, that thing about fessing up to the or sharing, not fessing up, sharing the fact that you felt quite blue and down and what you did about it. So yeah, we've got that clip you see there to the depths of how it can be when moving to Portugal as well.
Yes. Well, and firstly, my whole intention is to hopefully be of some contribution, some help, some service, and of some value. That's the whole reason that I like the idea, and my hope is that's what's happening. I have there have been a few times a reference to last week have been about depression, and I just, while I don't, as a therapist, I didn't diagnose, there are certain words that mean pretty clear things to people that are not necessarily what they are. And I was not talking about depression in terms of the state I was in that week, where it was kind of like I'm tired. Mostly it was just the deep end of immigration fatigue is really what it was. I just didn't want to do anything just for that day. And depression is much deeper than that. So I just want to make that clarification.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So that being said, moving on, I would love to dedicate at least some time, if not whatever time it takes, to this episode, to really looking back at these Mondays, and not just you and me, but the impact of any kind that these shows may have had on our community. As a way of acknowledging, celebrating, and remembering. So I'm asking our audience, or not, I always say audience, and that makes it sound like them over there. I mean our community, us, to look and just see, what do you remember from these Mondays? Anything that sticks out, what's memorable, maybe inspirational, something you learned, something new, some new or valuable tools, something you never thought about before, anything that where this show has impacted you in any way on a Monday would be a great way of remembering that we've been doing this for 2 years. So please feel free in the comments to throw out whatever shows up. I also know the audience, I go again, our community has matured and changed over that 2-year period. So it's a very different community now than it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So the observations 2 years ago might have been, struggling with getting moved over here and dealing with the D7 visa. And now it's more, becoming acculturated and learning the language and getting familiar with the geography and that kind of stuff. So, but whatever it is, I would love to hear the feedback, because you and I are just at this end of it and not really knowing how it's impacting out there, unless
we're in a
people
little
say
world
something.
of our own, aren't we?
Yes.
So it'd be very interesting to hear that.
Yeah, so feel free, please, to throw that in there. While you're contemplating that, I have my one thing I've learned about the Portuguese language, and this is one I had to figure out. Well, I don't know that I had to. So far, no one's ever taught this in a way that made sense to me. It's something that I just was working on by listening and being challenged by the pronunciation of the vowels. The consonants are not so tricky, but the vowels, especially O, A, and E, change. Not O. Now my brain's like, wait, there's O, there's I and U. Okay, those guys. So yeah, it is O, E, and A. They seem to change depending on where they are in the word and what follows them and what goes in front and where, if they're in the emphasized syllable, and all these things that seem to just move around. And then you have to listen hard enough to know, is that all or O? I can't hear it. All or O. It's two different things, but so it's the trying to figure that stuff out that I realized as I became more and more familiar with the accented vowels, that the vowels in the emphasized syllable are almost always the long form of the vowel. So or not the long, that's English. And I haven't learned the accent marks, but the accent mark over the O, for instance, in ótimo, it says emphasize here at the beginning and pronounce the O, all. If that O shows up in the penultimate syllable, but it won't have an accent mark because that's where you emphasize, and that O will be pronounced all, as if it has an accent mark somewhere else. not oo or o or some of the other pronunciations of o. That was very helpful for me to realize that an A in the emphasized syllable is going to be open, and it's going to be ah. And I can't now. I unfortunately I forget to put down examples. And the E is going to be open, and if it's in the emphasized syllable, it will be A. Right. So for me, it just was really helpful that if that vowel is in the emphasized syllable, then I know to open it when I pronounce it. And there may be some exceptions I don't know about, but as a rule,
probably, yeah.
As a rule, that was very helpful for me because I was being very confused. Am I saying ooh or oh or ah here? I don't know. And now with that understanding, if the word is following the rule of the penultimate syllable, well, it doesn't even have to be that. Wherever the emphasis is, thing is, if it's and now I'm just woo. Yeah, if it's not in the default emphasized syllable, it will be accented. So anyway, the open form is what I meant, not the long form. That was helpful for me, and I know that was a lot of words about that could be very confusing, like trying to explain astrophysics to. Well,
I'm going
to
simply mark that down as the opening your vowels bit.
Yes, the opening your vowels in the emphasized syllable.
Yes,
and it can be very helpful for pronunciation.
Pam's also commenting on this. Just open your mouth when you say it. Agua for it. Oh, that's good.
Yes.
Proxima.
Hence the open sound.
Open those sounds. And we've got an accent video from Philomena as well over on YouTube. And you know what? The other day I was talking, these two language teachers here, we've spoken to Maria Costa Vitor's wife and Dina Rollo just recently. And you were mentioned in the conversation we had. It was the Portugal Club Mastermind group talking to Maria. And you came up. You were mentioned actually by somebody in the call. James, he's my man. He's the one who really takes a lot of care about this. So you were seen as you were seen as a beacon of or as a great student of the Portuguese language and acknowledged as such there on that session.
So, well, I'll own that. At least trying to understand. For me, understanding the rules, understanding the structure helps me to remember and then reproduce. There's still certain grammatical things that I say, well, why do they arrange the words that way? That makes no sense to me. And why can't we just say it this way that I don't have answers to yet? But when I get them,
I mean, I said on last Thursday, there are pretty much always exceptions. So you go with the rule, don't you? Until I think you find out some years later on, as you laugh with a fellow Portuguese speaker about how that silly rule doesn't work in that, or that great rule doesn't work in that silly instance, right there. It's all part of the journey.
The thing that's really tugging on my learning ability right now is multiple words for the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's like, which one do I use is my confusion. And typically, if I ask a Portuguese, they just say it doesn't matter.
Yeah, like mesmo and igual, for example.
Well, and even for nouns, face has two words, cara and rosto.
Okay.
Like, why? When do you use one over the other? Those kinds of things confuse me. The word for understand, there's 3 words for it in Portuguese. It's like, which one do you use when? And I haven't made sense. So those are the things that tend to come up and confuse me more and more. So I love getting answers to those questions so I can then learn from it and let it go and move on.
Well, you're having those conversations, aren't you? That's the important point to make here. You realize something like that, and then you put it to your trusted counsel or committee, because I think you have a few people you call on as well, don't you?
Yes, several Portuguese friends who are always willing to help me and always willing to hear my coaching on English. So it's a great mutual exchange.
Yeah, so get those PBFFs for sure. Get as much help as you can, and that's why I'm suggesting with what we're doing with our new boot campy approach. It's not to replace anything else. I think you need to approach this on a number of fronts. There isn't one solution to learning Portuguese, as far as I'm aware. It is a multiple front operation.
And each individual learns differently.
Right.
There's at least 5 learning styles that I'm familiar with.
Yes.
Visual, auditory, tactile. I mean, so there's different ways we learn. Which is why I threw sing lagos, la 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 lagos, because some people will remember that and they won't remember the the penultimate syllables where the accent goes and the vowel opens.
Yep, absolutely. Gemini, good morning to you. Just popping in. Got to go to work. Sorry about that. I'm doing the Mia course, says Jackie.
Work?
Yeah, you remember, James. No, maybe you don't. I'm doing the Mia course I had through Expats Portugal. It's fab. Thanks,
Yes.
Carl. I really appreciate the assistance. Well, we're going to be doing more and more, that's for sure.
Eu também.
Eu também. Cara a cara, face to face. Rosto seems to be mainly used in reference to facial products. Creme de rosto. So maybe that's more like visage.
Could be, yeah. These are the things I love the answers for, but haven't gotten yet. So thank you,
we
Pamela.
love this.
That's
Thanks,
helpful.
Pam. Yeah, any insight, it all helps. Absolutely all helps. And we want to be a huge resource to you and have a big focus in these next few months, probably forever, really, on language and culture. Because if you've got language and culture, you've got most of it, haven't you? You've got 80% of your life here in Portugal. As James says, after you've mastered all that moving here stuff, this is the real deal when you're here, is language and the culture. Steve joining us at past. One thing I've learned about Portuguese, we've just heard that from James. Anything else? Any other reflections, James?
Well, for me, looking back, is an opportunity, and this is, I would do this with my clients every once in a while who would say that they felt like they weren't making any progress. And then, so taking the opportunity to look back and see where did we start? And just the shift, the evolution of the community has been part of my evolution, and one of the reasons I'm aware of it. So, recognizing when we feel like, oh God, I've been here 2 years and it just feels the same. So, well, let's look back. 2 years ago, when you put your feet on the tarmac at the airport, the very first time you arrived, were you the same then as you are now? And when you look at it 2 years ago, not even close. So that the learning of the language, how much of the language could I speak 2 years ago? Hello, goodbye.
I'm a different person from 2 days ago. But that's because I've been going through an especially turbulent time. And that's, if I may, just a little bit of a reflection on what we've been doing together for the last 2 years. I think what we've done well here, thanks in large part to you, is bring mindfulness into migration. João Denot, yes, auditory, visual, tactile, and kinetic. Thank you for those learning styles.
And maybe more, yeah.
Yeah, and James, you seem to be in good company here in Portugal. It appears several of our recent emigres from the US are retiring therapists, psychiatrists. Watch out, everybody. They move among us.
We've done our work and we're getting out.
I think it's great how we've created a context to be mindful. And if the word mindful, and you made it, you shared a meme recently, didn't you, about how much the word mindful can grate on people. And it happens, doesn't it? Any craze, any overused methodology or over talked about methodology does great. But the point remains that it's quite useful to have a transcendent, mindful perspective outside yourself when we're doing moving to Portugal and when we're doing life in general.
And the word is like so many other things we do. It's just shorthand for pay attention or look within. That's all it means. But it's what most people will associate that action with, that word. So it's a handy word to use.
About depression, you had a sense of depression. You weren't depressed, but you had a sense of depression that day. And it's all as ever. And that's another thing. What's lovely, I think, for me about talking to you on a Monday morning. You got to talk about things, can't you? That's the problem with mindful, depression, any other buzzword or shorthand. You have to talk about these things. You have to unpack them, don't you? And that's what we do. We have a nice unpacking of where people are at and give people a chance to talk about where they're at. And I think this is a big realization for me in the last few days, actually, and more generally, but it's certainly come into sharp focus in the last few days. The thing about, wherever you go, there you are. And I recognize for myself with moving to Portugal, it's very much a matter of how I moved to Portugal, why I moved to Portugal is to do with my personality. and how I manage life, and actually how I cope with life as well. You know, it's like, well, okay, what would be a good thing to do now? Move country, yay!
Again,
Yes!
again. That didn't work.
I've moved towns, moved cities. You know, I've just moved. I've just changed things rather than face things, you might say. And that, you know, that becomes a habit. And you know, some people are like that. Some people aren't. Some people have different ways of dealing with their stuff. For me, and I suspect there are others in our community, and certainly among people who've moved to Portugal, it's not just an exciting and pleasant and fun thing to do. It's also a way of avoiding things. And
Absolutely.
yes. And so there comes a point in the journey of moving where, oh, I've moved, and something, you know,
And I'm still here.
I'm still here, and things become familiar. It's time to move again. It's time to do something. And it's and that, you know, for the personality type that, like, I don't know, rather than would sit still and face or look at some things that have been unlooked at by moving, that's a moment where you can say, I see what I'm up to here. I can actually not move again. I might do this a little bit differently this time. A little bit older, a little bit wiser. One of the benefits, although time flies when you're getting older, perhaps your ability to contemplate. Or you're just so tired you don't want to move again.
You just rearrange the furniture. That's what we're doing.
Rearrange the furniture. That's right. Do something a little bit more sustainable and functional.
Something within the home.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a great translation.
Instead of moving the whole home, just move some furniture around. Yes. Well, I do that as well, as Mrs. M will tell you. She was saying only last night, we haven't had our three-week move of stuff for a little while, or something like that, where everything gets moved around. But so I'm very grateful for that. I'm very grateful for that context, that culture that we've got of not only the nuts and bolts and the mechanics of moving, but looking at yourself whilst doing all of that and learning and growing as well, which I think you are a stand for, you are a resource for. So thank you for that, James.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for the acknowledgement. I'm recognizing. It hit me and then it passed. So I guess I'll move on. Where do I want to go? I was so paying it. I was so in the moment with you. It's like, oh, go into the future now. What?
Let's not bother. With that. Good morning, people from Lee. Aviva also joining us. So I suspect we'll have some deep insight on the very same subject that we're discussing this morning. And Pam, I'm not moving again. Finally found where I belong. And isn't that a lovely thing to be able to say? That's absolutely wonderful. And I agree. I agree, Pam. And my urges, you know, the personality that has been developed. And, you know, I think it's, you'll know this as a psychotherapist, you know, the personality develops as a way of not only coping and thriving in the world, but with the emphasis on coping. You know, not everything that you do that your personality is based on is necessarily functional and useful for you. And this also comes into focus, I think, as you get older. It's like, you know, those things that I used to do as a way of managing life are a little bit ungainly now, or they don't work as well as they used to. And you get a chance to look at that, don't you? And what better place to look at it than here in lovely Portugal?
Well, yeah, or in any new situation, and the tendency, and I think it's just a human tendency. I mean, I certainly didn't arrive at this way of being. I wasn't born that way, and I've worked really hard for well over 20 years, probably most of my life, but consciously, to have a voice in how shaping my life. And most of us aren't aware that we have that capacity. Most humans don't. So this is why we behave the way we behave. As you said, the coping mechanisms we develop, and those actually, in my understanding of psychology and personality, are a result of one's personality characteristics. The personality characteristics are not developed by experience so much as how we deal with what's going on is shaped by our personality. Yeah. So some of us are very, very solution-oriented type people, and we wanted to, and so when things come into our life, we go about trying to solve the problem or whatever. And then there's lots of different personality types that deal with things in different ways. And then again, our experience shapes that as well. So that's the nature nurture debate that I've said. That's a ridiculous debate. It's both always. So why are we fighting about it? But it's both. Yeah.
Another word we can add to thanks for that, Pam. I've even had to cut back on the furniture rearranging the cat.
The cat doesn't. The cat say, "Hey, I'm fine, man. Just lay down and take a nap."
Well, that'll be FDS, feline disorientation syndrome. There's probably a medication for that. But yeah, another word that I think is misused, not misused. Well, it might be misused, but it's like, oh God, here we go again, kind of word is trauma. And this is something I've been looking at a lot. And there's PTSD. There are terrible things that happen to people, no question about that. And there's something I've been learning more about. It's called complex trauma, and connecting with what you were talking about with how personalities are formed. I think it's quite traumatic in many ways for many people being a child, and that that is not necessarily a complaint. Like being a little being coming into the world in its own way is a traumatic event, isn't it? You're a little creature that has to survive, but one way or another. And we have varying lots in life and cards of hands that we're dealt. But I think for most people, coming into the world is a challenging process. Let's call it that, and it might be
absolutely challenging. Yeah,
and it might be traumatic. And we arguably we live in a funny old world as well, in which some of those things are exacerbated. So what I'm saying is, and it's not a complaint, what I'm observing is that to manage that process, the human being adjusts and creates its personality, and that's useful information, isn't it? To know that, as you said, people have certain ways of, like a solution-oriented person. There might be a real gung-ho solution-oriented person because as they were uncomfortable as a child, the thing they thought to do was, okay, I'm going to take action. I'm going to take action. I'm going to take action for myself, and I'm going to start taking action for my family. And these people might become entrepreneurs, mightn't they? And they might become CEOs. The solution-focused guy. And the thing about that is, and I think maybe this is what your retirement in Portugal might afford you when you have a chance to look at these things, is when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So it's like, I've got a problem. Solution! Where's the solution? There must be a solution to this. Let's go straight to solution. And that potentially rules out other parts of the subtlety of life and all that's available to us as human beings in our whole repertoire of how to deal with life.
Yes. Like, why is this a problem for me? That'd be a good place to go before we go grab a tool.
Yes. But don't just do something, stand there.
Yeah, and there's some wisdom in that for sure.
Yes.
And I think a lot of it is because of my background. Certain words mean very specific things in a clinical sense, and trauma is one of those. Trauma, by definition within my field, is the fear of dying. That's trauma. Yeah. I am going to die, or someone I love is going to die, and it's genuine and it feels real. So a panic attack as a result of trauma is induced by a sense that I'm going to die and there's nothing threatening me. But the feeling is the same, and that's because of that trauma. Post-traumatic stress is because you watched your buddy get blown up. That's trauma, like death, life-threatening situations that trigger that trauma. Yes. So I have used other languaging that describes everything you talked about, but I don't use the word trauma in it. I talk about childhood wounding or injury, because we clearly, all of us growing up, being born, that may be traumatic. That may be a sensation of that we're going to die in that moment. I mean, we don't have the intellect to know, but that may be the very first trauma we experience coming into the world. Yes. But, my father criticized me a lot. Is not trauma in my view. It may be wounding, and I'm talking about my own experience because that's what happened to me. So I took it. I made that mean I'm not good enough. Mm-hmm. When what he really was saying was, you are so capable, you're capable of anything. So every time I came to him with something, it could be better. So that landed it, I'm not good enough.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. So that's that's wounding, that's injury, that's stuff that but wounds and injuries, we can heal them fairly, I don't want to say easily, because some of it is deep. This thing about criticism is still in me. I don't like feedback. It's still there, but you can apply a salve, you can put a bandage on it, and some of that will heal all by itself if you just give it the attention it needs to heal.
Wonderful.
But the trauma, something that feels life-threatening, is going to require more than a bandage and a little salve. It's going to require some real work.
Right.
So that for me, it's just around the semantics where I
fair enough. And again, it's talking about it, isn't it? That reveals what is really going on rather than shortcutting to any words or solutions for that matter. Now, and that is why we like to hear this.
Muito bem.
That's what we want to hear. That's what we want to hear. And we're going to move now from investing in ourselves, which is what I think we're talking about here, to investing in Portugal with the wonderful Steve White. Here he is. Hold on, he's on the phone again. Maybe he can't join us after all. That's what I meant to do. Here we go.
Hello.
Hola, bon dia. How are you, Steve?
Hello.
Oh, we need you unmuted. We need you unmuted, Mr. White there.
How about now?
That's perfect. That is absolutely perfect. Bon dia, tudo bem? How are you?
Not bad, brother. How's it going? Good morning, slug friend James.
Bon dia.
We're just, we're doing our mindful migration thing, reflecting and seeing what juice we can suck out of the therapeutic process. And I think it was a pretty good session this morning. And we were celebrating 2 years, of course, of James being on the show. And I look forward to you doing the same 2 years with us. You only just started here. You came and you did, you've partnered up with Raquel on the screen from time to time talking about but here you are in your new residency on a Monday morning talking about investing in Portugal. And I suspect there are a few personal development elements to that as well, Steve. Am I right?
100%. We've got quite a few things coming up, starting with I'm hosting a networking event in Coimbra on the 19th of April. And what I'm trying to do is show the younger generation how they can get involved in property for not a lot of money.
Very good. Okay. And what's the interest in that so far? Because you do appeal, do you not, to not just foreigners, expats, but local Portuguese people as well. How are they responding to that?
I do get some negative feedback sometimes from local Portuguese people saying, the typical foreigners are ruining the country, this and that. But once I start giving them the perspective of the way that they can earn money or they can benefit from the situation, then I find that their mindset kind of shifts.
Yes, very good. Again, it's unpacking things, isn't it? There are judgments and there are buzzwords, and then when you start talking about things, that's where the real juice and action is. On this matter of foreigners coming over here, this apparently ChatGPT. What would happen if foreigners stopped buying properties in Portugal? This was Vitor Costa who asked ChatGPT this and asked ChatGPT to answer as though they were Gordon Ramsay. If foreigners stopped buying properties in Portugal, it'd be a bloody nightmare. The real estate market would be as dry as an overcooked chicken breast. Property values would plummet faster than a souffle collapsing. Portugal's economy would take a massive hit like a steak hammered with a meat mallet. There's no swearing, well, not too much swearing in this. The country relies heavily on foreign investment in its property market. So if that dries up, it's like trying to run a restaurant with no customers. A recipe for disaster. We need those foreigners buying up properties like we need fresh ingredients in a kitchen. Otherwise, hold on a minute, what's underneath there? Otherwise, it's curtains for Portugal's property market. Well, Gordon Ramsay has spoken, if only through ChatGPT. Would you agree with some of those sentiments?
I would have to say yes, just because it's not just Portugal that depends on international, people coming to the country. It's also bigger countries as well too. Canada, the US, Germany, France, Spain, all of these places, they rely on foreign people coming to the country for some sort of reason. Yes. So I really think that Portuguese people should really start to think, okay, how can we benefit from the situation, or how can we grow from the situation? And these are the kind of scenarios that I'm trying to promote at my events, where I connect people with real estate agents, mortgage brokers, investors, or legal teams, accountants. I'm trying to bring everyone in because I didn't just say one day I'm going to be a real estate investor. I knew that I was going to do this. Once I started learning about it, I was like, you know what, this is actually kind of fun. And I guess this kind of ties into your guys' whole, you know, the mindset things of how people perceive things. And when I start to show people like, oh, okay, if you don't have any money and you don't have any real estate to invest into property, there's applications out there where you can just upload a photo. And let's say you know someone that owns a home that is trying to sell, you can upload to that program and you can make a €400 profit if that home sells.
Nice. We need that, please. We need a link for that.
I'll definitely try and get it across to you within the next couple of days. I have to double check a few things with them. But pretty much from what I can see so far, it's kind of similar to what we call, and I know you Brits love hearing this word, bird dogging. You all think it's something else, but bird dogging
what is bird dogging?
Bird dogging is where back in the day they used to have, or I mean even today, hunters, they shoot the bird and the dog goes and gets the bird.
I gotcha, yeah.
And brings it back. Okay.
Yeah.
So what essentially you're doing as that person is being the dog that goes and gets the bird. If you go out and find people that are selling properties or have ruins, or, you know, they just want to get rid of their real estate, or they're looking to sell in a reasonable time period, people like myself are willing to purchase these properties cash within a speedy time frame, as long as the numbers make sense.
Okay. All right, gun dog is, I mean, it doesn't make it sound any better in many ways, but gun dogs is what we would say in the UK. And thank you for that explanation there, so as not to get us banned from YouTube. That's wonderful. And I do like that reframe as well, you know, that because it is a bit of a, it's a bit boring, really, isn't it? It's a cliche, you know, the foreigners coming over here, buying up all the real estate, making it unbearable for us. There is some truth in it, of course, but it's very kind of unimaginative, uncreative, ultimately. And here you are. We were talking about being solution focused, but here, I mean, genuinely is a solution, isn't it? Well, why don't you get involved as well? You could complain. You could keep complaining about this, or you can have a piece of the action. Because it's, I mean, let's face it, it's not going to stop happening, is it?
No. I mean, it still gets back to that term of the silver tsunami. We're starting to see record amount of people relocating to Portugal. I shouldn't even say relocating to Portugal. It's relocating to places that have more sun than what they're used to back home. People are wanting to, people are wanting to relocate for a better lifestyle because they can't afford to live in their own countries, or they can't afford to retire in their own countries. So all I'm trying to teach people to do is provide these accommodations for these people, and you can win. I mean, we have a scenario of a property that we're picking up right now where we're not actually purchasing the property. We're doing a joint venture with the homeowner that owns a ruin. They inherited a ruin. All we're doing is bringing the money to refurbish the property, fix it, and sell it for a profit. And we're including them on 50% of the profit.
Excellent. Well, that sounds like a win-win.
They're not having to do anything. We're taking care of the whole process, but they're providing the home for the project. We're bringing the money for the renovation, and then we sell for a handshake.
Very good. Have you heard of the silver sensitive tsunami? Because it's all of these therapists and psychotherapists moving to Portugal. Apparently, there's a whole load of them who will need houses.
I mean, I'd say it's definitely something that we can look into. And I definitely think that even Portugal could be a place, just because of how caring the people are and how family oriented the Portuguese society is. I think it would be a great place for people that are like war veterans, or people that are, they're suffering from like a mental disorder, from, it could be whatever. It could be they've been hurt by something, or something happened. Yeah, trauma. Yeah. If we set up locations right now where we provide, a resort for these people to help get recovered, honestly, I think there's a big money pit there for, and not in a bad sense, in a good sense.
Absolutely, of course.
Money would get in there.
You don't have to explain that. I mean, it's very interesting, and I'm interested in your view on this, James, because that had never occurred to me before. This is a kind, calm culture, isn't it? And it's ideal for anyone in recovery of that kind to come to. and central Portugal as well. I mean, this is what you're specializing in, and we'll talk more about the beauty of central Portugal. But what about that, James? The idea of actually framing Portugal as a warm, welcoming place in which to recover.
Well, if you leave out the in which to recover, I think that was the sole reason I came anyway. I struggle a little bit with the notion that can be taken away that there's a single fix for any given set of circumstances, because the first thing that occurred to me is, well, yeah, the culture definitely is. It's certainly more in alignment for my way of living. That's why I moved here.
Yeah.
But it may not be for someone recovering or not. There are people that it's not for.
Yes.
The A personality, got to be busy, go do it, make a profit all the time, and do it fast as I can, is going to be sorely unhappy in Portugal.
Yes.
And if they're traumatized and that, which may be driving that, then being in Portugal might actually exacerbate it as opposed to alleviate it. So I just say, yes, I think it's a great idea. Any place we can get a recovery situation aligned with what a person needs, absolutely. But that's not going to be a one-size-fits-all solution. It's going to be the people who need a calm, embracing, respectful environment to recover in that would do best in this. But then they have to learn a new language, possibly. You have to deal with, there's lots of other things that could create more stress. So it's, again, like everything, it's a complex situation that requires some complex resolution. And I think it could be a really good one, absolutely. But not a blanket like, oh yeah, that's a solution.
That's just my personality. It comes up with stuff like that. And I totally take your point. Absolutely right. It's not going to work for everybody. And we see, I mean, I got a bit upset on social media on Saturday because somebody had posted up Mrs. M's. I take criticism of her much worse than I do of myself.
Yes.
So she there's her expats everywhere video, like what he didn't tell you. And it got posted up in an expat group and brought to my attention. And people had forgotten it was said 3 years ago. So I gradually kind of talked myself down from my first comments, which were, I forgot you had to drink vinegar as being part of this group, to a more moderate reframing of, I think Portugal's like, I think we might have said this before, it's like alcohol and money. It's an amplifier. So if you're a bit of a so-and-so when you're sober, you're likely to be more so when you're drunk or rich. And it may be the same in Portugal. It may just be a wonderful environment to magnify what is already there. And that could be really uncomfortable, or it could really be blissful and wonderful too. I don't
think it's going to make an asshole more of an asshole, though.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
I've seen it.
Yeah? Okay. Maybe I'm just not exposed.
Of course.
I'm just not exposed to those people, so I'm being in some way self-sheltered.
I'll need to do more sessions with you to make sure I'm not so much in the future as well. Right, Steve, there's a lot on this poster. This is the networking event that's coming up that you mentioned here from 5 in the afternoon through to 9. So it's an evening event, and with all that small print on there. Can you talk us through it and what people can expect to learn and enjoy at this event?
Pretty much what I'm doing is I'm providing a platform for people to learn about investing in the property market. So again, it's dedicated towards bringing people from all sides of property investment. What I want to do is bring all of the legal teams, accountants, contractors, first-time investors, experienced investors. I want to bring them all into one area because I don't think that Portugal has that sort of network yet, or I shouldn't say have it, but a consistent kind of meetup for it. And there are meetups that happen like once or twice a year, but what I'm trying to do is pretty much on the even months throughout the year, I host networking events, and on the odd months, we have like an online event where people can just learn online. And I was actually thinking about doing something that's similar to like a chat roulette, where if you are an investor or a contractor or anything to do with the property community, you come in and then you get put into a chat roulette where you get to be with 4 people for 10 minutes. And then you progressively, the room changes around every 5 or 10 minutes or whatever it is. Still something that I'm working on, but I'm just trying to connect the property community a lot more, because I think that the financial literacy around it needs to really grow in Portugal for it to be beneficial for the Portuguese people.
What do you mean by that exactly? I'm thinking rich dad, poor dad sort of mentality. Are you talking about challenging current thinking about how people get into property and all the objections they've got?
I agree. Yeah. So, like, let's take, for example, I had someone get mad at me a few months ago saying, "Why are you purchasing property to rent it out?" And I was like, "To make money."
Steve, why?
And they're like, "Oh, you don't want to just keep it as like a summer home or something?" And I said, "No, I'm trying to provide homes for people." And they said, "Yeah, but then you have to deal with all the headaches, and you have to deal with this, deal with that." I have people that deal with that stuff. I don't. I just try and help people as much as I can to get these properties in a good condition. But there's that kind of mindset. There's mindsets where people think that they can't invest in property for less than 5,000 euros. There's people that think that they don't have the time or the effort. We have solutions for these problems. So I'm trying to provide a platform where everyone can learn. And I'll be going over it as the topics of the event as well too, where you can earn 400 euros per referral if the property is closed. So if we buy the property and all the paperwork goes through, then you will get a 400 euro I guess grant or a referral fee for helping us out.
A handshake. Yes. Elian's here. Elian Lopsch, a very good morning to all. Keep up the good work, Steve. I agree. Keep up that good work.
Thank you.
And it's like, I mean, how could you buy properties and rent them out to people? What were you thinking? But I mean, that's the big problem here, isn't it? There is a shortage of inventory. There's not a shortage of stock in a sense, but there's a shortage of available and ready to renovate stock. And that's what you've just incentivized there. So I think that's really smart. And that's the big spanner in the works at the moment, isn't it? You first arrive in Portugal, especially central Portugal. You're driving around thinking, when I first got here, I was posting up a photograph of doer upper of the week. It got boring in the end because it was like every place you went to, there's like, oh, there's another one, there's another one. And I remember people saying to me at the time, "Oh, you'll get sick of this." And but I wasn't at the time. I was falling in love with each new abandoned building I saw in central Portugal with the telephone number daubed on the front of it, which I later realized had been daubed on there some 15 or 20 years ago, and it still stood empty in all that time. So you're getting in there with an incentive, because that's the way to do it. That's the way to make humans change their behavior, isn't it? That's a solid incentive to bring those ruins into some serviceable condition. And back into the market where it's desperately needed, isn't it? I mean, that's not what's being said about foreigners. They're coming over here and they're making rental properties available. That's got to be a good thing. So well done and congratulations on that.
Yeah. I also want to make it clear that it's not just central Portugal that this can happen. You can do it anywhere in the world, or even just anywhere in Portugal. You can do these opportunities where if you can find out who the owner is of these ruined properties, offer to pay them, 250 or 300 euros rent for the next 12 years. All you have to do is bring the money in for the renovations, and let's say you do pay 250 or 300 euros per year, you can rent out the unit for 650, 700 a month.
Yes. Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So you can rent and I guess cash flow from a property without actually owning it.
Yep, very good, very good. So these new reframes, new angles on this could really change quite a stagnant situation. Pam's saying in Alcobaça, a lot of talk about abandoned ruins. So maybe there's an agenda change here. We all know there are a lot of ruins and we know why, but maybe there might be something in the air. It might be pressure of the market. It might be, new thinkers like yourself that are changing this, and it can change. We have recently had a road closure because a house is about to fall down. It's a sorry state of affairs when it's got as far as that, and perhaps that becomes a compulsory purchase, which is another angle into this, Steve. If we can stay with Central Portugal for a moment, I saw a posting of yours, I think it was yesterday, people asking me, and it sounds like you get a lot of heat and you get a lot of questions. And I think you quite like that as well, in a funny sort of way. But why Central Portugal? Why would you want to invest in Central Portugal? And you posted up a beautiful video. What's been in it for you to have this sort of, new love affair with Central Portugal?
What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to really go after a market of people that feel like they can't afford homes where they are currently.
Yeah.
So because we're purchasing these houses for, 20, 30,000 euros, what I'm doing is using the business model of pooling funds together and investing into these projects as a team and giving these people a 16% return. That is kind of a low risk. Because we're purchasing these properties and, let's say we even just get them into a livable condition, we've already doubled our money from what it was initially started with to purchase.
Yes. Yeah. And you're not having to find $1 million to invest in an apartment, a T1 in Lisbon downtown.
No. The most I've spent on a project in Central Portugal, I think, is 120,000 euros altogether.
Okay. And it's fair to say, I think you have had your own eyes opened by going over that way and seeing what incredible beauty there is in this part of the country.
Yeah. It's been a mixture of working with different types of agents. It's been a mixture of working with different companies as well too. I know a lot of people in Portugal are saying, "Oh, don't work with this company or don't work with that company or, do this, do that." But what I'm really trying to stress for people that are investing into Portugal is that you have to be really diverse. If you're not diverse, you're not going to grow. It's the same thing with people that only invest into Airbnb. There's only so many Airbnbs that can be made before you're not making any profit.
Yeah.
Someone will always be bigger and better than you and willing to spend more money or take a bigger loss just so that they push you out of the market.
Interesting. James, have you been over to Central Portugal much? I guess it's a bit difficult, isn't it? If as a public transport user primarily, that does preclude Central Portugal a little bit.
Yeah, like not at all. I mean, I think Fatima is about as far east as I've been in Portugal.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not yet. It's all sort of awaiting other things. I've got a couple other projects I'm working on, and it's on the list. I said, well, if I just stay in Portugal for 5 years to get my residency and never leave the country, I will still have more things to see than I have time for. So
no question. No question. But it does. I think we do need to get some scouting trips together of Central Portugal, Steve. I would gladly drive the bus and drive around these beautiful places in Central. Absolutely love it over there. And I've got some. I was hoping for a moment to be able to shoehorn in some imagery of Central Portugal. I see myself as living in Central Portugal. Funny enough, it's a little bit of an anomaly because we live in a touristic seaside town, but we've definitely got Central Portugal vibes. For example, the church I drove past the other day with sheep walking up and down the steps of the. It's not a great photograph, but it was a remarkable scene to behold as I was driving. I think I showed you this, Steve, where you drive around the bend and you can see out to the Atlantic. On the left is a little church, which should have been a church, I think, that was dedicated to fishermen and blessing them in and out of the harbour. But there was a flock of sheep standing outside this church. It's like, what fantastic imagery, a flock outside the church there. And I talked to that lady and she declared to me that she was a black sheep in her own family. We had such a lovely, warm conversation, which is another part of Central Portugal, friendly people. And then yesterday, in not far, we're going further east into the country. We're beginning to feel the Central Portugal vibes just one village away with this new mural depicting life as you might see it in Central Portugal. I love this. This is something that you'll see in many parts of Portugal. It's not a well, it's a font, isn't it? It's a font. It's a tap of municipal water where you can go and fill up your bottles of water willy-nilly, basically. And it depicts a scene. I'll zoom in on this so that you can see what we're talking about. This is people in the old days washing their laundry at such a place. And you'll see this all over Central Portugal as well. Zooming in a bit closer. Look at that. I saw the artist over the last couple of weeks creating this work. It's absolutely beautiful. I mean, that's it in its context with the countryside behind. And there's a close-up with the water pouring out of the tap there that people can come along. They come along in their cars with their water bottles, they refill. And what a beautiful scene it is. That's the sort of thing we're talking about in central Portugal, that life. And not necessarily people washing their laundry, but you could do that if you wanted to. There are still places where that's possible, the communal laundry facilities. But that rurality, that friendliness, that calmness, that quietness is there in abundance, isn't it? In this part we're talking about.
Yeah, it's I also want to make it clear that it's not just all, in the middle of nowhere. There are nice cities in those areas. Pedrógão Grande, Castanheira de Pera, Pedrógão Pequeno, all of these places, or even Coimbra. Coimbra is also in central Portugal as well. And it's the second biggest city in Portugal. A lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah.
There's tons to do, and so there's, as a person that comes from Canada, being able to go, into the bushes, or being able to go to the beach. Let's say, for example, you lived in Castanheira de Pera. You're 45 minutes away from Figueira da Foz. You're 45 or maybe closer to an hour and a half to Coimbra. You're an hour and a half to Lisbon. And there's tons of locations that are available that you can live where, you're within a reasonable driving range. The coast is not far away. Most of the time, I don't even like going to the coast. I like being, secluded, or being away where I know who my neighbor is, or there's not 100,000 Airbnbs around me and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah. Sorry, I keep dragging it towards my idyll, but you're absolutely right. You don't have to be cut off, and it doesn't have to be in the middle of nowhere. And for example, Michael Barton, who's chosen Miranda de Corvo, there's going to be a tram. The tram is going to be reinvigorated. A fantastic connection to central Portugal from Coimbra that you mentioned there. Barak is in Travança de Lagos. Lagos, I beg your pardon. And we totally agree about the attraction to central Portugal, as we saw there. And yes, please come. That tour bus is going to be stopping at Oliveira do Hospital as well, which is another fantastic town, isn't it? A superb town.
Yes, it is.
And public transport is good here in Portugal. You can take a train from Lisboa Orient to Coimbra B. From Coimbra, you can take public transportation to many communities in central Portugal. Thank you, Michael. And João de Norte, we have a lovely place nearby where people still wash their laundry by the stream. So it still happens in Portugal. It's our lovely poo bridge, meaning Winnie the Pooh, because you don't want to be washing your laundry where people are pooing in the river. The first place we went house hunting was Castanheira de Pera, says Pam Smith there. We've got a couple of minutes to go. Let's give you a last word on this, Steve, and then we'll come to your visuals, James, that you sent me earlier on. So, Steve, you want people to come to your event. When is it, and what can they expect, just briefly?
It's on April 19th, 2024. We're starting at 5 o'clock and going until 9 o'clock. It is at Hotel de Luis, so it's right at the top of Coimbra, and it overlooks the river, and it's in a very beautiful location. Where it is. So there'll be about an hour of just like a market update, and then there'll be roughly 2 to 2 and a bit hours of networking, where you can get to know everyone that's in the room and, talk over drinks or a little bit of food.
Speed dating for property investors, basically, right?
Yes, exactly.
But no bird dogging. Not of that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Steve, for being here. Slugs, a friend, James, you posited with us earlier on cat yoga school. I see this far too often in my household. And people saying, I wish I could do that. And then you have to say, well, if you ask him nicely, he might let you. And I'm really into writing short fiction, mainly to-do lists. Ain't that the truth? Right, James, last word to you on this Mindful Migration Monday.
Well, I just am remembering, or I wanted to sort of summarize the main messages that have been a part pretty much for the entire 2 years. Consistent reminders of what we control, which is only ourselves. That ego can get very reactive if we don't learn to manage it. That breath, intentional breathing and gratitude can really be helpful in calming us down and bringing us back to peace. That looking within is where our answers are. So that's the mindful quality of it. To remember that nothing's broken. We are not broken. We're just challenged, and we have challenges to address. And when we do, then the challenges are resolved. And then finally, the mantra that's repeated over and over and over is notice, choose, and act. Just live in that cycle, and another brilliant 2 years to come, and more, I hope.
My heart is swelling at the sound of that. Thank you very much, both of you. Steve, great job. See you next month. Have a great time at the networking event. And I hope a few Gumpers will turn up to support you and find out more, actually, and change their future possibly in Portugal. James, see you next Monday. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in this morning. You've all been wonderful. Take care. Bye for now. And we'll see you tomorrow. Ciao, ciao.